He stood at the edge of a new year, the morning sun spilling over the Utah mountains like the slow, deliberate turning of a page. The world moved, as it always did, chasing the elusive comforts of wealth and security. But he was not of the world, not entirely. While the bulk of humanity hurried into routines, he lingered in thought, listening for the quiet whisper of the universe. What now? What next? The questions weren't heavy, but alive, brimming with possibility. He wasn't ordinary, though he'd long since stopped trying to explain that to anyone. It wasn't that he was better, but that he sought something different, to stretch, to grow, to touch the unseen fabric of existence. Most people looked at life and saw tasks. He looked and saw threads, weaving patterns he yearned to understand. Writing, painting, pondering, these weren't hobbies to him. They were flight. Every stroke of his pen or brush was a wing beat toward freedom. Freedom. That was the word that sang in him. Not freedom to escape life, but freedom to embrace it on his terms. The world had its behavioral maps, its expectations of what a mature man approaching the final chapter of his life should be. He had none of that. He didn't measure his days in dollars or applause, but in the weight of what he had learned and created, and now, what he could create, what he could become. The work itself was the reward, the pursuit, the proof of life. Why? Others would ask, bemused or skeptical. When do you even find time to sleep? Why push so hard? But he wasn't pushing against anything. He was pulling himself towards something. He wanted to know, to really know, the mysteries of heaven, the secrets of the soul, and how to tap into the energy that connect all things. It wasn't ambition that drove him. It was curiosity, the holy kind that whispers, there's more. Keep going. It hadn't always been easy. The voices in his head, oh, they were loud. You're not smart enough. You're too old. People will laugh at you. But he had learned to answer them with quiet defiance. Keep walking, he'd tell himself, step by step, even when the path was steep. And when he stumbled, and he did, he would look up, catch the light breaking through the clouds, and feel the assurance. You're not alone. Press on. There had been miracles, of course. Heaven's fingerprints were everywhere in his story. The unexpected solutions, the sudden clarity, the moments when the impossible bent to his will just enough to let him through. Like the time an important project of his nearly fell apart, and somehow, piece by piece, he built the system he needed from scratch. Or the countless times he faced a mountain of doubt and found, to his surprise, that his faith was stronger than the climb, encouraged by the words, the only way to overcome discouragement is through determination. He had been called weird, strange, a dreamer, while others wanted to put him in a box, with labels, to no avail. Nevertheless, he wore those words and labels like a badge. He didn't need others to understand. He only needed to know he was true to himself and the music inside him, the rhythm no one else seemed to hear. Why do you do the things that you do? They'd ask. And he'd smile. Because to not stretch, to not create, to not be himself in every way, that was the true impossibility. He wasn't just chasing knowledge, he was chasing wisdom, that rare and fleeting thing that lives beyond the margins of books. And wisdom didn't come cheap. It demanded long hours, early mornings, and a willingness to be alone, not lonely, but alone. In those quiet hours, before the world woke, he found the stillness where inspiration lived. He filled his days, not with busy work, but with purpose, and that made all the difference. Most people didn't understand, and that was fine. He didn't live for their approval. He lived for the moments when the veil lifted just enough to reveal a sliver of truth. He lived for the small victories, the whispered confirmations, the joy of creating something that had never existed before. He lived for the stretching, the reaching, the becoming. And now, as the new year unfolded, he felt it again, that deep, abiding readiness. He had come so far, grown so much, but he knew there was more, always more. More to learn, more to give, more to become. The path ahead was uncertain, but that didn't matter. He had wings, and the sky was calling. Let's see how far we can go, he whispered, not to anyone in particular, but to the universe itself. And then, with the quiet resolve of a man who knew exactly who he was, he took the next step. He moved through his days as though the world were a vast and infinite ocean, each ripple a possibility, each current a beckoning call. He had learned long ago that limits were illusions, born of fear and doubt. And now, with every breath, he challenged those illusions, reaching beyond what was seen, what was known. Each early morning, at the quiet hour of 5 a.m., he stepped out into the crisp air, the world still wrapped in the softness of an impending dawn. He walked 3 miles, not for the exercise alone, but because the universe spoke clearest in the stillness. This was his sacred time, before the noise of the day, before the demands of the world. Here, beneath the expanse of stars fading into the light, inspiration flowed freely, like a river with no end. His routine was deliberate, his focus sharp. He listened intently to inspirational talks and music, and studied scripture not as a chore, but as a dialogue, a conversation with eternity. He visited the temple weekly, a place where the divine felt close, tangible, real. Here, heaven spoke in whispers, in bursts of clarity, in quiet reassurances, and at times in bold testimony of true principles. Every visit was different, yet each was profound, filling him with light and direction. He saw the temple as a key, a door to heaven, to increased understanding, to growth, to becoming. His hunger for knowledge and growth was insatiable. It wasn't a restless hunger, but a deep and abiding one, born of the understanding that he was, at his core, an eternal being. Time, age, and physical constraints were mere constructs, shadows of the greater truth. Life is endless, expansive, full of potential. Every step he took, every thought he nurtured, was a movement toward that infinite horizon. He understood that this journey required surrender, not a passive giving up, but an active opening. He let go of preconceived notions, of old fears, of the weight of pride. In their place, he welcomed new ideas, fresh insights, and the guiding hand of the Spirit. Heaven communicated in countless ways, through subtle impressions, moments of serendipity, sudden bursts of understanding. And with his open heart and willing mind, he was learning to hear them all. The flock that journeyed with him had grown smaller over time, an inevitability of this physical world. A few close friends shared his vision, his relentless desire to push beyond the ordinary. They were like him, seekers and doers, willing to stretch themselves, to embrace the unknown. And he knew he was called to something even more. His gift was not just to learn and grow, but to lead, to inspire, to show others the limitless possibilities of life. He began to grasp something extraordinary. The speed of thought was faster than any human constraint. With a focused mind and an open heart, he could reach into realms unseen, pulling wisdom and insight from places most people never imagined. There were no barriers, no walls between him and the knowledge of the universe, only the willingness to believe, to imagine, to act. His understanding deepened with every passing day. The human body, he realized, was a vessel, a tool for the spirit to navigate this mortal life. But the spirit itself was boundless, connected to everything, capable of anything. He saw himself as a son of God, a being of light and potential, yet still on the path toward that perfect realization. He wasn't there yet, and he knew it. The gap between his flawed humanity and God's infinite love was humbling. But it was also motivating. The Spirit had revealed to him the power of love, true, Christ-like charity. He could no longer look at another person without feeling the deep, abiding love God had for them. It humbled him. It inspired him, and it drove him to become better, to grow in compassion and understanding with every breath he took. His imagination became his workshop, his canvas, his flight path. He saw things not as they were, but as they could be, and he worked tirelessly to bring them into existence. He created paintings, writings, ideas, manifestations of the faith and understanding that burned within him. He understood now that to create was to become, to stretch toward the divine, to step into the role of a true son of God. He moved forward with purpose. Every thought, every action, every intention was aimed at growth, at learning, at loving. He saw no end to what he could achieve, no limit to what he could become. For him, freedom was not a destination but a way of being, a freedom to be himself, a freedom to be more, to become everything God intended him to become. Eternity is now. It beckoned him. And as he stretched his wings, he knew he was ready for this next step into the unknown universe of possibilities, and he wasn't afraid.